We will not bow down. Let my people go. We will not bow down. Let my people go. We will not bow down. Let my people go. We will not bow down. Let my people go. We will not bow down. Let my people go.
Well, hello and welcome to episode 69 of the Croydon Constitutionalist podcast, bringing classical liberalism to South London and beyond via our YouTube channel and wherever you get your podcasts. My name is Dan Heaton and my partner in podcasting today is Mike Swaddling, the co-founder of the Croydon Constitutionalists. Mike, how are you?
Very well, Dan. I have recently been away, and as will become slightly clearer, something I'll mention later. Yes, very nice to have finally left these shores for a little bit and got some sunshine. And I mean, there's a lot wrong with the world, but I got to see normality again and see there's also quite a lot right.
Excellent, glad to hear it. So, Mike, what have we got to talk about today?
So today we're going to start off talking about some of the things that are wrong. We're going to talk about the Ukraine and if we are now in a stalemate. We're going to ask the question that many seem not to be able to answer of what is a woman. We'll be talking about that briefly. And then lastly, we'll be getting an update on the Croydon Mayoral race to see what exciting events are unfolding in our town.
Excellent. So yes, the war in Ukraine rages on, but in recent days, as we record, it does seem that we're entering possibly into a sort of stalemate situation where the Russian forces don't seem to be gathering any momentum in terms of taking over places like Kiev and other key cities. And indeed, it's been reported that the Russian forces have withdrawn from one of Kiev's airports. What's more, apparently, some Ukrainian forces have even struck into Russia proper, if you like. Looks as if Russia may be somewhat on the retreat, although Napoleon's not necessarily a big fan of such things. But they seem to be perhaps retrenching into what perhaps they wanted at the beginning, which was to secure those eastern areas of Ukraine. Mike, what have you taken from recent developments?
Yeah, I'm always very keen to express my lack of military credentials and military planning understanding in a time like this. To when we talk about such things. But I very much agree with you, and that's what we're seeing said more widely. Russia is not making the gains they were. It did appear prior to this that the intelligence much of it was leading on the thought that Russia wanted to capture the eastern provinces, turn them as part of, if you like, Russia proper, and formalize a weakened, smaller Ukraine. Somewhere when the invasion started, it appeared that actually they were looking to take all of Ukraine, and with the numbers of troops involved, the speed with which they hit the forces, that appeared to be the case. And certainly, I heard something quite interesting from one military planner who was saying, don't think that Russia is doing badly because their tanks are struggling to move forward. Often when you move quicker than you expect, that's when you have supply chain issues, and that's why you slow down. Now, that may have been true a few weeks ago, but that's not true anymore. And it does appear that they found resistance much more fierce than they expected. And maybe it is a paper bear somewhat, the Russian army, and particularly when it comes up against relatively well equipped forces. So that appears to be where we are. There does appear to be a movement from Russia to say, how can we get out of this and save some face? And that surely has got to be the next set of focus for everyone.
Well, yeah, because they won't want to seem to have been defeated, although I suppose it depends whether somebody's been victorious or whether they've been defeated, depends upon what their official war aims were. And I'm sure they can make those aims up as they go along. Whether Ukraine, the current Ukrainian government will be prepared to, for example, accept that Crimea is part of Russia, or accept some either that those eastern regions belong to Russia, or that those eastern regions should have further autonomy, and indeed whether, in light of the actual invasion, whether they should even accept those things, even if they are de facto the case, is another matter. Because this is the thing, of course, if Russia is seen to win, or seen to have been victorious, then it opens things up for other dodgy states to look to invade other places. I don't know what you think of that, Mike, as to how they might get out of this.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think there are layers of what happens, and 10 years from now, Russia will be part of the international community. It will be at the top table in many discussions because it is a nuclear power. It spans many time zones. It's got a pretty large population. Although it has many economic woes, it actually has quite a lot of gold, I believe. So it has a relatively strong currency, notwithstanding momentary fluctuations. And this will be, this will be a past event. I'm not saying that as a good thing. I'm just saying that I'm pretty confident that will be the case. Now, that's 10 years from now. Where will we be 10 months from now? Will we be in a situation where actually we need the gas and frankly the bread produced by Russia and the Ukraine, obviously, but certainly from Russia? Will there be much more open trading? Will it be they trade more within their bloc? But of course, that frees, it's a world market for most commodities, and that frees up other areas. Will there still be tough sanctions? But de facto, we recognize the fact that Russia controls parts of what used to be the Ukraine. I have a suspicion that may be the case, even if no one formally recognizes it. And that could be where we're heading here, is my guess, that we are heading to a point where Russia secures what would, if you like, where its fallback position of objectives. And whilst no one accepts it or likes it, it becomes a de facto reality and we move on from it. And to be clear, I'm not saying that's right. I'm not saying that's necessarily a good thing, but we are talking about a nuclear power here. There isn't a good option to humiliating them. So moving on, stopping people being killed in the streets, that's got to be a good starting point, even if it's not perhaps everything we hoped for.
Indeed, and you mentioned there, Mike, some of the practicalities facing obviously the region, but also the rest of the world in terms of gas supplies and other commodities. One development this week is that the regulators have said you don't need to plug those shale gas wells in Lancashire. Whether that means that they're actually going to really look at fracking anymore in the UK is another matter, but it's a welcome development.
Hugely. Why are we voting to make ourselves poorer? Who's really voting to make ourselves poorer? No doubt when they put these wells in, there is a lot of local opposition. But who's that coming from? I'm sure it's not coming from the people that want good local jobs. I'm sure it's not coming from the people that are worried about their taxes going up or worried about how they're about to pay their bills. I expect you, Dan, I was away, but I did it yesterday. And people listening to this podcast sent in their meter readings this week because we want to get our meter cut at this price tag, or the previous price tag up to the end of March, rather than the new tariff starting from April. I've certainly had my bill through. It's doubled basically. I have to be philosophical about it because there's not sure what else I can do. I work from home more now, so that come the winter, that doubling really will bite in terms of cost. Why would we not want to be in a position whereby we can improve that? And even just saying we're going to start looking at creating new shale gas wells will bring the futures market, the long-term costs of some of these commodities down. It won't necessarily have an immediate effect on our price at the pump or at the meter, but it will be a start. And it will get us to a better place in the future. That's got to be a good thing for us. Most people I speak to will always revert to the cliche of we need to rebuild our manufacturing industry in this country. I'm not always quite sure that we actually have a very good manufacturing industry in this country. We sometimes denigrate it too much. But if you're keen on a manufacturing industry, you need cheap energy. We don't want to compete on cheap labour. There's no one in the world that's cleverer than us. So we've got some great educational institutions, but you can't compete by being the one country that's had an industrial revolution, perhaps the way we used to in the past. Everyone's competitive on that. We want good, skilled, well-paying jobs, and cheap energy and the regulatory environment is a way we can do that. To get cheap energy, we need to drill, baby, drill.
Absolutely. Well, that's enough of the real world, perhaps. Let's talk about something else. So whilst there's all these things going on in Ukraine and our cost of living is going up, and in particular gas and electricity prices, what's going on in politics? What are our politicians and media talking about? Well, they're asking themselves perhaps the question, what is a woman? Now, I don't know about you, Mike, but I've always thought a woman was an adult human female. Seems it's a bit trickier these days. Labour politicians in particular seem to refuse to answer what you would think is quite a basic question. And the current Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rishi Sunak, when he was asked the question this week, his response was that the Prime Minister's recent answer was great. But when pressed on the point, it was clear that he didn't actually know what the Prime Minister had said. Mike, is this a confusing matter for you?
It's is what a woman is like a confusing matter for me. I suspect there are many people that will tell you that is the case. Is what a woman is absolutely not. You know, not a phrase I often use, but I agree with Wes Streeting. Wes Streeting put it very, very clearly when he said, men have penises, women have vaginas. Here ends my biology lesson. That doesn't mean, by the way, there aren't people who transition to other genders because they experience gender dysphoria, and we should acknowledge that and conduct the debate in a way that's respectful of those people's rights and dignity. I couldn't agree more. What a great sentence. It's not like Labour, who have particularly stumbled over this, are devoid of understanding how to answer this question. They've got someone there that's answered it brilliantly. We know what a man is, we know what a woman is, and we want to respect the rights of people to act differently, to live their lives in a way that they choose. It doesn't impose on others, but to live their lives in the way they choose. That's great. That's really nailed it. Well, I don't understand for a moment what the confusion is. What do you think, Dan?
No, I think you're right there. I think Wes Streeting put it very well. I think the Labour politicians actually who've struggled to answer this question because they don't want to offend people, and perhaps because they are beholden to certain activist groups, will be pretty upset, I think, because the Tories have done them again. The Conservatives obviously had the first female party leader in Margaret Thatcher. Again, obviously became Prime Minister. And then they did the same with Theresa May. Well, the Conservatives have now got the first openly transgender MP, that being Jamie Wallace, the Tory MP for Bridgend, who this week announced that he was suffering from, as you said, gender dysphoria, and made some quite stark admissions about things that he'd been going through. And the Prime Minister has given him his wholehearted support. Whatever he goes ahead and does, transitions or what have you. But I thought that was interesting that whilst the Labour Party seemed incapable of answering the question, nonetheless the Conservatives have beaten a march on them once again. Well, somebody else who struggled a little bit, or perhaps didn't struggle, depending on your point of view here, with a particular question this week, is the current nominee for the US Supreme Court, who is Ketanji Brown Jackson. Whilst under questioning by the US Senate committee on the nomination, when she was asked what is a woman, her response was, "I am not a biologist." Now, an interesting response from somebody who is potentially going to be making some very serious decisions on constitutional matters and in the US. I mean, clearly, it's quite an unusual question to be asked at such a nomination hearing, although there have been many strange questions asked in recent approval hearings. But yeah, Mike, she's not a biologist.
It's a good job, and certainly, I think it's reasonable response from her. It's measured, it's sensible, and we all know little children, boys and girls, have no way of identifying gender. They have no idea that they're different from each other because they too are not biologists. I wonder often how the human race has got to this point, because there was a time when we could procreate without universities. Therefore, some of us definitionally not being biologists. It's beyond me. I mean, what a farce. What an absolute farce. The Supreme Court is likely to be hearing a number of cases about people, about gender. Title IX is a kind of a big thing in US sports. And that's all about equality equality between the genders in sports. There no doubt be many, many other cases. And you cannot credibly be saying, I'm a judge, I'm adjudicating on matters for the entire nation, but I don't feel able to define a man or a woman because I'm not a biologist. I bring you back to Wes Streeting. You know, men have penises, women have vaginas. It's not hard, it's not difficult. That doesn't mean, by the way, there aren't people who transition. Again, it's not hard. She could have given that answer. It can't be beyond her wit, someone with her, you know, amazing track record through being a lawyer and through the courts and what have you. You might not agree with her on many things, but you can't deny her background. That she can't define what a woman is. Farcical.
Well, one person who apparently can define what a woman is Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida. Now, Mike, where have you been on your holidays to?
Oh, so funny you should say that. I went to the freest state of the union, good old Florida. For those that don't know, I was actually out there to watch the USA play Panama in a soccer game, as they call it, among other things. Take a week's holiday and took in a World Cup qualifying match, as one does. I will just say, from an incredibly free place, you at no point outside of the airport, the federal territory, which the airport is, outside of the airport, did I think there was any sort of nonsense around COVIDs and masks and lockdowns. Actually, that's not quite true. There's one exception to that. I did try to board a bus to Universal Studios, and they wouldn't let me on without a mask, which I didn't have. And I was only doing it to get on the bus and see it. Fine, I didn't. I took an Uber. It was fine. Yeah, really great sort of free place. And Ron DeSantis, I have to say, wherever I went, you felt the love for that man. He seeing support for him and seeing just kind of comments made by people. Just spent a lot of time chatting to Americans. He's a very popular governor. They're very happy with the outcome they've got, and I think they're very happy with his practical position on women's sport.
Yeah, so you mentioned Title IX there, which essentially means that universities and other places need to provide equality of services and provision for female sport, essentially. And we've seen just in the past few weeks that someone who was born male and, as far as I am led to believe, still has the male apparatus, but has decided to identify, or feels that they should identify as female, has gone from being a good swimmer in the male ranks to being the best swimmer in the female ranks, and won a recent competition. Clearly, if you've seen any photographs of this or any footage of this, this person clearly is much more muscular than the female the other female swimmers, who, you know, are obviously very, very fit, very athletic, and very good swimmers. But this person clearly has a huge physical advantage over them. You've got to sort of, if this sort of thing continues, you've got to fear for the future of female sports.
Absolutely. One of my nieces happens to be quite sporty. She likes to run, long distance running. She was a couple of years ago, because boys and girls, obviously at a certain age, able to compete reasonably well with the boys, because she's good. I'm talking at a school level, and you know, the boys and the girls were sort of not dissimilar sizes. Now, obviously, she runs in women's races because the boys are much, much better than her. And this is even as 15, that's that sort of age group. That only extends. There's an amazing photo of this swimmer of the swimming competition where they jump into the water at the first point. And the photo has all of the female swimmers diving in you know, tremendous way. I couldn't hope to do that, but you know, but very similar kind of length dive, and I don't know, a body and a half length, something like that from the spring point. And there's this man jumping possibly half as far, maybe twice as far as them, and at a completely different angle and height going into the water. He's different. It is not a fair competition. I wouldn't expect a 5-year-old to run with a 10-year-old, a 10-year-old to run with a 15-year-old, or swim with a 15-year-old, and a 15-year-old to play a sport against a 25-year-old on a fair footing. Why do we expect a man to do it with women? What possibly makes that in any way acceptable?
Indeed. Well, you mentioned a fair fight and equality of competition. We've got a heck of a competition coming up in Croydon over the next month. We've got the inaugural, I suppose you'd say, Croydon Mayoral election coming up on Thursday, May the 5th, the same day as the councillor elections. And so far, we've got a few confirmed candidates. We've already discussed previously Jason Perry, standing for the Conservatives, and Val Shawcross standing for Labour. Well, we can confirm, we believe, some of the other candidates, although the nominations aren't in until a few days' time, so we'll have absolute confirmation by that point. But it looks like someone called Rich Howard is standing for the Lib Dems. We've got Peter Underwood standing for the Green Party. And it's been rumoured for some time, and it does now appear to be the case, that Andrew Pelling, one-time Conservative MP and until fairly recently Labour councillor in Croydon, is going to be standing for mayor as an independent. And also a lady called Farrah London, who is from the Taking the Initiative Party. Mike, your observations on those?
It's a big field, as you might expect. It's a great opportunity for instance, the Taking the Initiative Party to put its name on the map, for right or wrong. You know, the main parties that you would expect are running candidates. Obviously, we know Gavin Palmer well, and he spoke at our hustings, expecting to run as an independent. Andrew Pelling running as an independent, although I believe he registered a party. It'll be interesting to see what basis he runs there. Is very interesting. He's probably got the best Twitter feed of all of them that I've seen. They're just quite interesting as he wanders around Croydon and notes conversations he's having. He's the sort of big name that when I was involved in Democ, we'd hoped might emerge from outside the party structure. Now, of course, he was in the party structure, and the fact that he was booted out by Labour is a factor in him emerging there. So I'm not sure that that's great in that sense, but he is the sort of name that we would hope would emerge from this, and not just, you know, Jason and Val have both been Croydon councillors, Jason's case, he's a Croydon councillor at the moment. Rich Howard is a perennial Lib Dem candidate, as is Underwood for the Green Party. So Andrew adds a bit of spice, I think, to that. It'll be interesting to see. I've heard rumours there are a few more independents running. I haven't seen haven't seen anything of them. So it'll be interesting to see what comes out of that. But many of the hustings have already been held. So if you want to make a name for yourself, I'm not quite sure how you go about it.
Well, that's right. I mean, obviously, the referendum didn't take place until the autumn. So, you know, although we suspected which way it would go, you couldn't formally launch a campaign really until that point. But, you know, it takes some doing to come from absolutely nowhere to having a real impact in a race of this nature. Andrew Pelling has only very recently formally launched his campaign because he was, you know, part of the Labour Party and was, at least on the face of it, hoping to stand for the Labour Party again as a council candidate in the current seat he holds in Wadden. But there was a prolonged procedure whereby he eventually got kicked out, basically. So that would have delayed any formal campaign from him. And you know, when you're up against the machines of the Conservative and the Labour Party, you really do need to be making a splash some time out, I would say. I suspect he is going to be the leading independent candidate, however many there turn out to be. As you say, we've had Gavin Palmer speak at our event, and he's written a piece for our website too. He is, as I understand it, at this moment planning to stand, and we will see whether, you know, we'll see in a few days' time what names are actually announced as the candidates. But yeah, it's going to be a tough fight for any independent candidate. That said, it's an instant runoff system, so you do get 2 votes. You get to vote for perhaps your favourite candidate, and then you vote for your least worst one second. So the chances are that it will still be a Conservative or a Labour candidate that will end up being victorious. But it will be interesting to see how many first choice votes perhaps that Andrew Pelling gets. And you know, again, there are other independent candidates. We've mentioned Gavin, but Pelling, because of his notoriety, having been the MP at one point and a recent councillor, and of course, I suppose, because he's represented both of the main parties, he's sort of, he's not an outsider, but he's, you know, I don't know, perhaps doesn't get on with either, as it were, perhaps. So he's it's an interesting an interesting position to find himself in. He's an outsider, but not an outsider.
It's worth just reiterating something you said there as well, Dan, which is how you vote. Now, clearly, it's up to every individual how they choose to vote. But if I might propose a system that will work for many people listening, I think, which is that you vote for your favourite candidate, as you say, and then you vote for the mainstream party candidate you want to elect to keep the other lot out. So it may be the case that people vote for, and I'll use the example of say Andrew or Gavin, in fact, yeah, as independents, and then vote for either Val or Jason for that, you know, as if you like, the backup vote. That's, I think, how lots of people will be using that. If you're like me, you won't be voting for any of the parties that voted to lock us down for the last couple of years, and you know, to hell with all of them. But if you're not taking that view, that may be how you want to vote. And that's something for people to get used to. And bear in mind, depending on the ward you're in Croydon, you will also have either 1, 2, or 3 votes for local councillors. And there will probably almost certainly of the main parties be that appropriate number of candidates from them in each ward. Won't always be the case, but more often than not, that will be the case.
Yes, and of course, once these nomination papers are in, we'll be able to see who is standing where for the councillor positions as well, and no doubt we'll be reviewing those nominations and seeing what we think about those. But yeah, there's some hustings planned. There's one coming up on Thursday, the 7th of April at 8 p.m. at St Matthew's Church in Chichester Road. I believe there's going to be 5 parties or 5 candidates represented. the Tories, Labour, Lib Dem, Greens, and I believe Mr. Pelling is the fifth person who's going to be there. But Mike, I believe you're hosting a debate.
Well, yes. So with a different hat on to the Croydon Constitutionalists, I'm also chair of the Causden and Purley Debating Society, and that's a non-political society. It's a debating society. The clue's in the name, funnily enough. We are hosting a debate between Jason Perry, who is proposing a motion, and Val Shawcross, who is opposing the motion. And the motion is it's time for Croydon to go back to the Tories. And this is being held at 7:30 p.m. on the Tuesday, the 5th of April, in Old Causden, the Old Causden Centre in Grange Park. So it sounds quite a loaded item, but that's how debates work. Anyone that's familiar with how debating societies work, you don't put a mealy-mouthed or non-controversial proposal up. You put something firm in, and it's the same debate motion we had 4 years ago for the council election. So yeah, the debate, it's time for Croydon to go back to the Tories, with Jason proposing and Val opposing. If I might say, they are probably the two leading candidates for mayor of the borough. A chance to see that on Tuesday, the 5th of April at the Old Causden Centre in Old Causden.
Indeed, and if we hear of any more hustings or debates taking place, we'll certainly filter that information out to people via the social media. Well, one thing I've discovered in relation to the upcoming elections is that I had an email from a local residents association in the area that I live, and in the ward in which I live, this residents association holding a series of meetings with the Conservative candidates and the Labour Party candidates and the Green Party candidates for the council ward in which I live. And in the email, it makes reference to, in this particular ward, the Lib Dems are supporting the Green Party candidates on this occasion. So it may be that there are places where the Lib Dems don't stand and the Greens do, and possibly vice versa. We've often seen in the past that the sort of none of the above or votes get spread out. So it may well be, we've certainly not had any conversations with anybody to verify this, that the Lib Dems and the Green Party may have actually had some conversations, but we will see what happens when those full nominations are announced.
I've certainly heard from the Conservatives and Labour people that they've struggled to fill their council seat quota, particularly their non-winnable seats. So in Croydon, it's 75 councillors. I can't quite remember the number. For both parties, at least 25, possibly 30 of them, you're not going to win. So they really struggled to put even paper candidates up for them. I wonder if that's also hit the Lib Dems and the Greens, who I think have put out a full slate in the past. But yes, very interesting if they are working together on this one.
Yes, well, we'll know all about it in just a few days' time. So, Mike, what have we been up to, and what have we got on our website at the moment?
Well, I've been sunning myself in Florida, so who cares about the rest of it? But I have put that time to good use. So I've written an article up on our site about an organisation called the Daily Wire, and it's about welcoming customers left behind. The Daily Wire is a news and now increasingly entertainment and razors company out of the US, run by someone called Ben Shapiro, who's a very famous podcaster out there. Talked a bit about some of my experience in Florida, of what I saw, and a bit about how this organization is increasingly moving into the entertainment sector, where they feel the entertainment sector has left us behind. Anyone that saw anything from the Oscars, other than the Will Smith, Chris Rock incident, will know what a woke-a-thon it was. And probably the chances are none of you since this did see anything from the Oscars. Daily Wire's acknowledged that and is looking into it and saying, okay, how can we start producing what the Americans call conservative, slightly different from our conservatives, conservative films, entertainment, sports broadcasting, etc. Worth having a read. Something that I think a trend we will no doubt be seeing coming here and extending from gene reviews in the near future. We also have up on the site an article from the SDP candidate for the Sid Cup ward in Bexley, Lawrence Williams. Now, if some of you that name seems familiar, Lawrence was actually the Libertarian Party spokesman at our recent hustings. Lawrence has made the switch to the SDP. He's made it. He talks a bit about that in the interview. He's now running for them in Sid Cup, so that's really good luck to Lawrence. He has worked with the party in the past. To quick quote from the article: "I would like to see our available housing stock properly utilised across Bexley and an end to the scar of food banks." So that's sort of firm SDP territory. That, worth having a read. And if you know anyone in the area, worth getting them to consider giving Lawrence their vote. Lastly, new up on the website, I was on Libertarian Dan. So Dan Lidicott, his Libertarian show. This was a couple of weeks ago. We talked about the Ukraine, Putin, the West's response, and also about Brexit and Article 16 and what happens in Northern Ireland. Really interesting discussion with Dan. He's a really good, sound political guide. We've had him on this podcast a couple of times, I think now. Have a look. You need Facebook to view it, but my video's up there should you want to have a look, and hopefully you find it interesting. And then lastly, not so much on the website, but an upcoming event. We have a no passport required drinks for April. Wednesday, the 20th of April, so the third Wednesday again. We will be in the one remaining Wetherspoons in Croydon Town Centre, the George, from 7 p.m. So that's Wednesday, the 20th of April, 7 p.m. in the George, if you want to come and join us for some drinks.
Absolutely. Look forward to seeing as many of you as possible on that occasion. Well, if you'd like to write for our website or have any stories you'd like us to cover, please do contact us. You can do so via the Twitter at Croydon Const, via our Facebook page, via our website, croydonconstitutionalist.uk, or via email, croydonconstitutionalists@gmail.com. Well, do please subscribe to the podcast and the YouTube channel. Do please like, share, and leave a review. It's always good to get feedback, and it helps others to find the podcast. Well, thank you to everybody for listening. And until next time, it's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from me.
Stay free, everybody.